Hello bookish friends, spooky season is upon us and as you all know that means it is my time to shine. And I am here to help you stack your spooky season TBR. And so I'm going to be talking about my all-time favourite spooky season reads. What to expect from today's video? So I love haunted houses, I love supernatural horror, monster horror, I dabble in extreme horror, things like that. So you're going to get everything from your haunted houses to your monsters, including one about, it's a horror but it has kind of like a kind of romance between an 80-something-year-old woman who's the main character and like a sentient jellyfish creature from the ocean. And I'm also going to give you some spooky season romance recs as well. One thing I'll say about me is that I don't like literary horror. I don't like lit fic at all, really. I feel like, and this is just my opinion, if you like literary fiction, it is no shade on you, but when you kind of blend the two and you have like literary horror or literary romance, I really feel like it sucks everything that's good about the genre out of it. And sometimes I do feel like it can feel extremely condescending. It almost feels like you've got these authors who don't actually love the genre, who aren't actively reading into the genre a lot, coming in and saying, look at me, I can do this better, and capitalizing off of, you know, genres that are very, very successful and make money, because lit fic doesn't really make a great deal of money, genre fiction does. Those are just my thoughts. Again, no shade if you like that kind of thing. I am very much in support of people reading what brings them joy, because otherwise what's the point? But just to be clear, I'm not going to be recommending any literary horror or anything like that because I don't like it. So if you are with me, you can rest assured, oh, that's wonky, that's nice. You can rest assured you're not going to get any of that. No, I'm not going to be taking comments or questions about this. Look, protecting the integrity of the lipstick is important. First things first, you're going to be very bored at me for recommending this book because I know I talk about it a lot, but it's dead silence. And I talk about it a lot because of how much I love it. This is like Titanic meets a haunted house, but in space. For my romance girlies, this has a little romance subplot in it, but ultimately it's about a space crew that accidentally stumble across a luxury space cruiser, so like a luxury cruise but in space because it's the future. And it'd gone disappeared. Good English, girl. It had disappeared a long time ago, and they finally found it. So they go and investigate, and what they find is not so great. The first half of this gave me extreme anxiety. The setting, and I won't spoil anything, is so creepy. So there's one particular moment where you realise kind of what's going on at the same time of the characters, and you're like, oh shit. Now, the first half of this book is very hardcore horror. The second half turns more into a thriller. I'm not the biggest fan of thrillers, so I didn't love the second half as much as the first half, but the first half was so good, I have to stand. Another one is The Haunting of Rookward House. Darcy Coates has a massive backlist of haunted house books. That is just what she does and what she excels at. So if you like Darcy Coates' writing, just go read her backlist, because if you love haunted houses, you're going to get loads. Next, Near the Bone. It is quite twisty-turny in many ways, and it's about a woman who is in an abusive relationship with her husband in a snowy, isolated cabin on a mountain, which I love that trope. And there appears to be a monster in the woods. And now one of the things that I enjoyed the most about this book is it's very clear that whilst, yes, there is a monster in the woods and bad things are happening, this poor woman has to contend with two monsters, the monster outside and the monster inside, that being her husband. And there are quite a few twists and turns when it comes to their relationship and what's actually going on there. I really felt like she built the dread effectively. I felt like she really effectively portrayed the character and what the character might be going through, and you really felt the high stakes in this situation, because either way it kind of feels like she loses. Obviously, with any horror book, check the trigger warnings, but of course you're going to get a lot of stuff to do with DV and things like that in this book, so be wary of that. Such sharp teeth. This is a werewolf book. The main character is called Rory. Had to double check there. And I just found this a really wonderful portrayal of this kind of story. It's got a lot of female rage in this book, which I really enjoyed, that's mixed in with kind of the allegory of the werewolf and things like that, and the loss of bodily autonomy, all of that kind of thing. There's quite a lot of good body horror in this. And again, for my romance girlies, there is a romance subplot. Must have a tea break. I bet you caught that real nice with my mic. That must have sounded delightful. I'm probably going to leave it in just for you. Old Country. I really enjoyed this book. I did recommend it to a friend, and my friend didn't love it as much as me. She said there are lots of descriptions of trees, and that got a bit boring for her. Now, I don't remember there being lots of descriptions of trees, but I really like trees. So that probably would be a benefit for me, not a negative. Do with that information what you will, but this book is essentially it's like a monster horror, I guess. It's about a couple that move, they buy a house in kind of like the mountains or the wilderness, a remote part of the US. And they have neighbours that come around to greet them, and it's not like a normal neighbour interaction. It's more like, hey, in the spring, there's going to be this guy that is completely naked running at you, screaming, help me, a bear is going to kill me, I'm going to die, blah, blah, blah. When he does that, you do need to shoot him immediately. Or, well, it's been a while since I've read this. Does he need to shoot him or does he need to ignore him? I don't remember, one of the other. But anyway, you either shoot him, you ignore him, or something like that, but you don't do anything outside of that. You don't deviate. I don't know if I've sold you on this book already by the really bizarre opening to this, but yeah, that's the book. There's basically like this seasonal demony creature that manifests in a different way every season. And I think one of the things that really spoke to me about this book is that the main character, I believe he was a former soldier. I believe he was in the army, and he quite clearly has PTSD, and he is a fucking chaos demon. He is unhinged, and I loved it. He was chaos. Everything he is supposed to do, he's just like, I'm not doing this. This is my house. I don't care if it's an all-powerful magic-y demon. I'm just going to shoot it in the face. And at one point, he literally goes up to the magic-y demon and is like, this is my home now, motherfucker. This ain't your land no more. This is my land. And it's like, why would you do that to a demon? Why would you do that? But he does it, and I loved him for it, and it was great. The final quarter of the book, to me, didn't quite live up to the rest of the book, but I what can I say? I gave this a 5 out of 5. The main character really spoke to me. He was fucking unhinged. Okay, I'm now going to go rogue with this one. Is this technically a spooky season read? No. This book, however, traumatized me in a way I'll never recover from, and if I had to suffer through it, you have to suffer through it too. So this is a Japanese book. Why Japan? Why? It's translated, and it's translated well, so we don't need to worry about that. And the first line of the blurb of this just says, in the tradition of Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca and Ira Levin's Rosemary's Baby, here is a new classic about the bride who's no longer sure what to think. She basically marries into this family, and everything all seems good at first, but then the family starts seeming a bit weird. They're very secretive. They have these traditions. They have these rituals. She just goes in and she doesn't really know what is really going on and what to think, and it feels a lot like they're lying to her. But about what? What are they actually doing? I am not going to say anything more about this book because it will spoil it. And again, I will stress to say this is not really a spooky season read, but it is horrifying. So I'm adding it in here again because I don't want to be alone in my trauma. Now, if you have any triggers at all, any, spoil the book for yourself and just look them up. I went into this completely blind. I don't have any triggers. I was fine but horrified. But if you do have triggers that I can't tell you about because it will be a spoiler, you might traumatize yourself. So spoil the book, check the trigger warnings, and make an informed decision if you have any. If you are anything like me, what you want to get out of horror is either fun and campy or absolutely terrifying. Patricia Wants to Cuddle definitely falls into the first category, which is fun and campy. This book is about a group of reality TV show contestants that go into kind of the wilderness for the purposes of this TV show. But unfortunately, there is in fact some kind of monster, which it's not a huge spoiler, I don't think, to reveal what it is, but I won't do it. Some kind of monster out there that will violently unalive them. Okay, I'm sure you've all been waiting with bated breath. This is Jellyfish Creature book. This book is on KU, or at least it was on KU the last time I checked, and I implore you in the strongest possible terms to go and read this book. The Haar is incredible. What horror book do you know that features an 80-something-year-old main character called Muriel? We love Muriel. We support Muriel. Muriel is a widow who lives in a small Scottish village, has always lived there, intends to die there, and then some rich dickhead comes along and wants to buy up all of the houses and, you know, knock them all down, get all the villagers that have lived there their whole lives, most of them, out. Basically, no gentrification, capitalism, all that kind of stuff. Muriel encounters a sentient jellyfish creature on the beach that's come from the ocean. It is insane. She puts it in the bath. It needs blood to live. She keeps giving it her blood. And then it shapeshifts into her dead husband. This whole book is just... I don't know what this book is. It's insane. It's also amazing. It's amazingly written. It's got some really good body horror. It's engaging. It's not that long. I just cannot recommend this book enough. I fell in love with this book the second I read it, and yeah, I've been making my way through David Sodergren's backlist ever since. But I think the majority, if not all, of his books, from what I recall, are on KU. So if you like this one, KU girlies, go and read his books. That's so cold now. The Watchers. This book does have a movie, and if you've seen that and not read the book, please don't take the movie as an indication of as to the quality of the book, because the movie, I'm sorry to say, is pretty shite in my personal opinion. The book, however, is fantastic. Basically, it follows the POVs of a few different characters, but it starts with Mina, who accidentally finds herself in this forest in Ireland. She's driving through it, and all of a sudden her car breaks down. She can't get it to work. It's becoming night. She's wandering through this forest, and eventually there are these people that she finds that are screaming at her to get into this house or this building that they're in. She runs, she's scared, she's like, what the fuck? And now they're like, you are stuck here and you will never leave. Because there are monsters in the forest that are just watching them. Every night they have to go to like this room in the building that has like glass windows around, and the creatures just watch them. They imitate them. It seems like they're almost trying to understand how to copy them. There's twists in this, but basically the forest is so big that anytime you try and leave, you know, if you tried to leave during the daylight hours, because these monsters only come out at night, you will not make it, and they will unalive you. And it's just an incredibly atmospheric, incredibly creepy book set in Ireland, written by an Irish author. We're going to do a quick foray into a little tiny bit of extreme horror next, but I want to talk about Hex before we do. It has a really cool concept. So it's about a town that is basically cursed by this witch. So once you buy a house there, once you move in, you can never leave. And this witch, basically, this long dead witch, just appears, just materializes in various different places. She has her eyes sewn shut, her mouth sewn shut. And it's been so long since she's opened her eyes that the villagers don't remember what will happen if she ever does. And guess what happens in this book? This one was really enjoyable. It was written by a Dutch author, originally in Dutch, and then it was translated into English. And I believe because the author speaks fluent English, he translated this himself, which is really, really cool because he knows exactly what he wants to say, and he said it in English in this book. This is a joke that you will only get if you were around on my TT, the clock app, back in like 2022. I don't know why, but when I say Whargoul, TT's, I can't say the actual name, their captions just don't understand my accent, I guess, and it kept correcting it as Woggle, and now I say the Woggle. Fun fact, there was a band called Gwar. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. The lead, well, I don't know if it was the lead actually, but a man in the band was called Dave Brocky, and he wrote this book. Another fun fact, they wrote a song first called Whargoul, and then he was like, fuck yeah, that could be a book. The tagline of this book, which I think tells you everything you need to know: I destroyed your life, I graped your wife, I am the fucking Whargoul. This book, I don't understand, and it's very problematic, and it's weird, and it's like, what's just the most graphic things I can think of, the most heinous activities known to man, but also what's this cover? The first time I saw this cover, I was like, it looks like my neighbour's fucking ugly chihuahua. What's going on with this? The Whargoul is like some resurrected demony creature that just grapes and unalives. And I'm confused, and I gave it 2 stars, but also I would read it again, and I don't know why. On to a recommendation that isn't just confusion for me, Psychic Teenage Bloodbath. This is really fun. Carl John Lee has a bit of a backlist that I'm keen to get into, but I read this a few years ago and then just never ended up getting into the backlist, so I'll have to do that. But this is a really, really fun one. Now, with extreme horror, it's like anything goes. Anything goes. So you shouldn't be reading extreme horror if you have any triggers. I probably should have said that for the Woggle, but I didn't, so I'm saying it now. If you don't know much about extreme horror, it can also be called like splatter punk, I think. Regardless, anything goes. The most taboo shit, so maybe don't read it if you have triggers. But this one for me felt like a bit extreme horror light. It was extreme horror, but it wasn't like the most hardcore aggressive extreme horror out there. But it was just fun. I enjoyed the writing, I enjoyed the story. And it's basically about two lesbian high schoolers, I guess. They are attacked and one of them goes into a coma. Now, all that time, her mind has been conscious, but her body has been asleep, I guess, and she's gone quite mad and somehow has developed psychic magical powers. Anyway, she decides eventually, after like a year of being in that coma, to use her psychic magical powers to reap revenge, and everybody is unalived, and it's glorious, and it's bizarre, and it's over the top, and it's great. Another, I would say, extreme horror lighter, but that's fun. And I'm saying extreme horror lighter because I've read worse stuff than this. Like, for example, I've read like Judith Sonnet and like Bloodsuck, Repugnant, stuff like that. So for me, this is quite light. For you, it might not be. I don't know. But this is Unalive for Daddy Satan. We love this book. It's very fun. There is a cult, and Daddy Satan is like, I think you should go and grape and unalive this town that you live in for me on the night before Halloween. And they're like, yes, Daddy Satan, and that is the book. And it's a short novella, and it's just fun. This one is insane. I think this is actually a spin-off of Edward Lee's book. I think it says his Infernal series. I haven't read them. I just went balls to the wall straight in with this one. It was fun and really weird. But there's something called Lake Misquamicut that's in Florida, and for some reason everything around it has gone like all fucky, and it suddenly is filled with blood and everything else directly from the pits of hell, and everything around it goes all demony and weird and bizarre, and then a group of unwitting teenagers accidentally travel within that like toxic zone, and you know, it's extreme horror and bizarre things happen, and I was just bemused when I read this, but in a good way. Final one, if you're wanting a bit more of like the harder extreme horror. As you can see, it is a very wholesome book. The cover is two people embracing under a rainbow. It's lovely. It's an uplifting story about a woman named Jenny finding her true love. Now, clearly that's not true. I just literally can't show you the cover or the title of this, so we're off to a good start. Jenny, it stands for like you're downstairs, that you would use if you're in a smut scene in a romance book. I hope that's enough context clues. Yeah, it's gross. It's like a collection of interconnected short stories, and characters reappear in different stories. It's disgusting. I don't have any triggers, but I do have a bit of a thing about like bodily fluids, and there were several occasions in this book that I did like have to put the book down, and I was like, I'm going to throw up if I keep reading this. I don't know why, that's the only thing that gets me. It's just bodily fluids, and I wouldn't class it as a trigger. It's just like a thing that makes me really nauseous. It's vile. It's disgusting. Don't know why I read it. Still gave it 4 stars. So if you want to do that to yourself, if you're like me, feel free. Okay, I'm going to conclude by talking to you about some romance recommendations now. Pestilence. This is book 1 in the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse series. Take the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse and make it sexy. That's what this series is. The end of the world is nigh. Everything is fucky. The 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse come, starting with Pestilence, who roams across the land spreading pestilence, but he's also a sexy man, and there is a sexy heroine who starts the book by trying to unalive him, and he's really pissed off by that. So he proceeds to do very bad things to her for like 80 pages. It's not a dark romance, but it is a dark romance, if that makes sense, because he definitely does bad things to his heroine for quite some time. I mean, kind of justifiably, because she sets him on fire and burns him alive, and it's not great for him. But yeah, the series goes through these different 4 horsemen. So it's pestilence, then war, then famine, and then death. My favourite is probably jointly pestilence and famine. Pestilence is deep down like a real deep sad boy with a heart. Famine is a psychopath morality chain. I don't care about anyone other than my heroine, and I love him so much. And talked about this one recently, read it recently. It's got witchy, kind of gothic, paranormal romance vibes. You may see this being marketed as a romantasy. It's not a romantasy. Publishers just market it that way. One, because I think people don't fully understand what romantasy versus paranormal romance is, and two, because romantasy is hot shit right now. But it is a paranormal romance, it's not a romantasy. I just want to be very clear with that. But yes, witchy, gothic, dark academia kind of vibes. Witch falls in love with a demon who's the headmaster of the school that she's being forced to go to because she is getting revenge for the death of her aunt, which her dad trained her for all her life. I will tell you, there's a big plot twist at the end. The hero, quote unquote, is an absolute villain. Genuinely, he is an awful, terrible person. Earlier, I said I was going to recommend a romantasy, and I meant this book, but actually I don't think this is a romantasy. It's a paranormal romance because it's set in our world, but just with magical creatures, so forget what I said earlier. But okay, The Bargainer by Laura Thalassa. She's the same person that wrote the Four Horsemen But Make It Sexy series. Now, disclaimer, I've read the first book, loved it. I'm halfway through the second book and I stopped reading it years ago. I probably will pick it up at some point again. But the second book really veers into quite a lot of like fantasy stuff, I think, for me. And I just didn't vibe with it the same way I did the first book. I do want to finish the series, and this is like a full like omnibus kind of thing of like 3 books, all 3 books. I think there's 3 or 4, and like a novella, I think. This has got the whole collection anyway. It's teeny tiny writing, look at that. The heroine is a siren, and she is acquainted with a man who's known as the Bargainer. I think he's like it's been years since I read this, so sorry if my recollection's hazy, but I think he's like a fae type creature. He definitely has wings from what I remember. She's been collecting a lot of IOUs from the Bargainer, and the problem with that is she's asking him for favors and he is saying, okay, but you owe me. You know, she's not necessarily going to like it, and she's got a load of IOUs that she's collected from him, or that he's collected from her. Guess what, though? They're in love. It's kind of like they had a relationship, kind of, and then they were split apart. I think, if I remember, there was like a miscommunication thing, and then he comes back into her life, and he's kind of a bastard, but I think he's always been in love with her, and she's kind of always been in love with him, and it's like this kind of like paranormal romance, kind of fantasy vibe kind of series. Finally, guys, we've got Angelika Frankenstein Makes Her Match. What an insane book this was. Sally Thorne, I think, wrote this during COVID times, and I think I don't know. She had a moment, and I'm not mad about this moment that she had. It is literally a retelling of Frankenstein, but from Frankenstein's sister. And basically, the sister is the one that creates or reanimates a person, but then he's sexy. And she reanimates this man, and he doesn't have any memories back, and they fall in love, and then he gets his memories back, and it's like, oh. Now, I will say, and I won't tell you because it's left to like 3/4 of the way through the book to reveal who he actually is. Didn't find him quite so sexy when we realised who he actually was. That's probably mostly a me thing, but nevertheless. Even so, didn't stop my enjoyment of the book. It's absolutely unhinged. It's perfect for spooky season, and I strongly recommend it. That was my absolutely behemoth recommendations for spooky season. You're welcome. Your TBR is stacked now. Next week, I am going to actually be bringing back my weird book series. So I'm going to be talking to you about a weird book that I read recently, and that is going to be fun and unhinged. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe for more book recommendations, horror, romance, weird books. I'm bringing back some series that I'd started a while ago before I went on my break. Would love for you to subscribe because I'm trying to grow my YouTube channel. And yeah, hope you enjoyed. Tell me what you're reading this spooky season, and I will see you in my next video.